All right. Hooray, we're live. This is an exciting show today. We have a cast of thousands here. We're on with the docs team that writes the docs for ASP.NET. So thanks to all you folks for jumping on, and it's exciting too because this is a distributed team, and so we have people from all over the place. So I'm going to jump into the community links, and then I'll let you introduce themselves, and then kind of show off what's in docs and what developers should know about it. So Tom, can you switch over to my screen, and I will do the sharing of the desktop. Okay. Dun, dun, dun. Okay. And here we go. Now here we go. And let me know when you can see this. Oh, okay. Do you see it?
Yes.
There you go.
Good. Okay. All right. So we first of all, from Dominic, we have this is kind of cool. This is a take on access token management for ASP.NET Core, and also introducing a identity model of ASP.NET Core. So they've been doing a lot of work with things like token management and working with ASP.NET Core clients. And so actually introducing this identity model ASP.NET Core allows you to, in one line, retrieve a token. So this is actually doing a few things. It uses an extensible storage mechanism for the tokens. It can check for token expiration and refresh if necessary. And then you can actually retrieve the token back to the caller. So this is a new project that they're announcing, but exciting.
Cool.
All right, this one is really cool. This is Shahed has been doing these mega series. So here, this is his 26th. So he's through the alphabet on his series A through Z on ASP.NET Core, and so this one is on zero downtime web apps with ASP.NET Core. And I'm just going to flip over to make sure, see if we have anybody saying they can't hear anything. All right, seems like we're okay. Okay, so zero downtime ASP.NET Core. So some of the things he looks at is some stuff like using staging slots, and like deploying using those staging slots, using also Traffic Manager for availability, and then some other things. My laptop's working hard to keep up here. So I'm actually not in my home office today, and so I'm on my laptop, and my laptop is having fun with video and everything. So anyhow, he goes through CI/CD, like I said, deployment slots, which is a must-have for zero downtime, and then migrations, and then finally another feature that we've talked about recently, which is feature flags. And so this can be really useful for doing things like having not requiring a new deployment to turn a feature on or off. So I've used this in a lot of applications where we've done kind of a quiet deployment of a feature and then just toggle it on when it's actually ready to go live. So cool. All right, Brady Gaster with configuring a server-side Blazor app with Azure App Configuration. So some neat things here, working on multi-org authentication. So here he shows setting up Azure AD. And along with Azure AD, some of the neat stuff with integration, for instance, the app configuration and iConfiguration integration. So built in with the Azure App Configuration NuGet package. Then some other things in here showing off. Waiting for my screen to refresh here. Dynamic reloading. So that's also pretty cool. So it kind of wraps up with that. So, neat stuff. Okay, NDC Oslo 2019 videos have started going up. So at the end of this, I include all the links, and I'm including this link to the entire playlist. As of now, I only saw 2 ASP.NET related ones that had gone up. And those are, first of all, K. Scott Allen with his Advanced Azure App Services. So I always love his Azure deep dives, and this is going through a lot of features and kind of in-depth Azure App Service stuff. And then another one is this is from another member of the Identity Server team. So Brock Allen going through securing web APIs with JavaScript and SPA apps. So great stuff. And again, watch that playlist because there are other talks from NDC Oslo. I know like Damien Edwards and David Fowler, and there's several other ones ASP.NET related. So keep an eye out for those. All right, Heather Downing, writing on top 5 DevOps automation tools .NET developers should know. So a lot of really good stuff here. First explaining, why you should invest in DevOps tooling. Don't just push to production or even get push deploy. It's useful to understand like CI/CD and different tools available. So going through those, there's also some things in here like SQL database versioning. Different SQL database tools, so a nice roll-up of that. And then code analysis and, just kind of wrapping up with, how to learn more and why it's a key skill. So great kind of overview post. All right, 2 tweets from David Fowler. He's basically blogging via tweet now, but they're really good ones. So this is a new feature in ASP.NET Core 3.0, support for W3C trace context. So the way this works is by adding just this one line, activity default ID format, and setting it to W3C. Then these headers are inserted. So there's 2 that are included, the span ID and trace ID. So what this allows you to do is trace things all the way through a request and see them on the client. So allows for kind of much more in-depth tracing. One other one from David Fowler. So he wanted to go through and make a tiny microservice. So he got to 22 lines of code and posted it as a gist. And so this is it. Here he's got his CS proj and just a few lines of code. And this is a fully async microservice. So thought that was pretty neat. And these are all in this list that I'll be posting. So this will be in the show notes, and I'll tweet it out and put it in the chats. And I am done with my links. So let's hop on over. I will stop sharing and let's meet the team. So would you folks mind introducing yourselves?
Sure, I'll start, John. So my name's Scott Addy. I'm just another Scott at Microsoft, lesser Scott, working on the ASP.NET Core docs with the folks on this call. Been with the team now for about 2 years. I'll toss it over to Cam now.
Hey, I'm Cam Soper. I'm also on the ASP.NET Docs team, specializing in our Microsoft Learn content and some Azure SDK content. I've been on this team for about 5 years, and I've been at Microsoft for about 7, based out of Kansas City, Missouri.
I'm Wade Pickett, and I've been at Microsoft for about 14 years now. But I'm new as a content developer for ASP.NET Core. Currently, I'm working on some MS Learn modules for Razor Pages.
And I'm Tom Dykstra, and I've been on the ASP.NET team off and on for 11 years. I was away in Azure for a while.
Great.
Cool.
Okay, so I had asked if one of you, I think Scott, were you going to give just kind of a quick look at docs for people that aren't as familiar with them?
Yeah, why don't we start there? I'll share my screen. And let me know if you can see it.
I see it.
You're there.
Okay, cool. So I guess where we'll start is just talk about the doc set that all of us on the call are spending the majority of our time in. And that's what you see here on the screen. This is what we would refer to as the conceptual doc set for the ASP.NET Core product. One thing I guess I'll start off with that a lot of folks often miss, but it's very important, is up in the corner of the page, we have this version selector. And so you'll notice that, if you're interested in docs for the latest preview version, 3.0, you could navigate there and you'll probably notice that the table of contents changes based on the version that's selected from the picker. So I'll change that again back to 2.2, and you see, sure enough, there was a little bit of a shuffle there in the table of contents. As far as contributions to our docs go, that's probably the next most common thing we hear about. How do I get started? Maybe there's a glaring mistake on this page here. How do you go about fixing that? Well, if it's something as simple as maybe the word "the" appears twice, we see that happen a lot. It's easier than you might think. You could actually go up to the top of the page and there's an edit icon here. And if you click that, this is the simplest way to contribute. It takes you right into our GitHub repository. And all of our docs that we were looking at on the rendered page are open source out here in this repository. So it's just github.com/aspnet/aspnetcore.docs. And from here, what you can do is click this pencil icon to edit the file and just fix whatever mistake it is. So, maybe there was some mistake up here. Maybe instead of "you can," we want this to be "you can't." Terrible example, but assume you're making some simple change like that. And what you can do from that point is you could preview your changes by clicking that tab. You get a nice color-coded diff here. And if I toggle back to the Edit File tab, we have the opportunity down here at the bottom to just include a very simple description. What is it that I'm changing here? Well, maybe I'm just changing "can" to "can't." And it's here where you would have the opportunity to, create a pull request for this. Now, your options are going to be a little different here. I have commit access to our master branch. You would not see that first radio button. At least I would hope not. Click the Commit Changes button, and what would happen at that point is under our pull request tab, we would see your pull request listed there.
And you all can see these too if you want to see what everybody's submitting, comments, conversations that are going on with any of these issues live. You want to join the discussion, it's all right here.
Yep. So that's kind of the simple contribution workflow. Now let's say you want to submit maybe an entire doc for a feature that's coming out in the 3.0 release. Or maybe you want to add a couple of paragraphs to a doc to clarify something. The workflow there is different, and what we would actually recommend in that case is go back out to the home page of our GitHub repository. If you scroll down and look at the contents of the README file here, what you're going to see is a link to what we call the contributing guide. Now, if you click that, this is going to tell you, okay, how do you make a more complex submission to our repository? One of the tools that you're going to see mentioned in here is something called the Docs Authoring Pack, which is an extension that's available for Visual Studio Code. Definitely recommend doing that. And you can think of that extension as really like a kitchen sink of an extension. A monolithic extension that brings along other extensions for the ride. One of those extensions is a really nice markdown linter called Markdown Lint. You get basic spell checking capabilities, as well as some templates that you can start with if, say, for example, you're authoring a brand new article. So again, that's called the Docs Authoring Pack. That is available out in the extensions marketplace. And here it is here. And just to make sure that contributors find out about this extension, maybe they don't see this contributors guide. What we've actually done, I'm going to flip over to VS Code. Can you guys see VS Code on my screen?
Yeah.
Let me try sharing a little differently here. Screen one. All right, now can you see it?
Yep.
Cool. So one of the things we've done is Visual Studio Code actually has a way to recommend extensions within a workspace. And so what we've done is, you'll notice in this .vs code folder out here in our repo, we've created this extensions.json file. And what you're seeing here is it's saying, hey, when someone comes here, if they do not have this docs authoring pack extension installed, let's recommend that to them. That's really the purpose of the file that you're seeing here. And so, you know, what that might look like, let me go out here and I will actually uninstall that. All right. Let's close VS Code. I'm actually going to launch the docs now from the command shell. So, you know, VS Code is our recommended tool for working with the docs. It's just a first-class markdown editing experience. So what you'll notice now, down here in the corner, we get this toast notification that says, this workspace has extension recommendations. Okay, let's see those. What are those recommendations? And sure enough, Docs Authoring Pack is a recommended extension. And so from that point, just click install and boom, you have the extension. Because you know, we recognize that not everyone is going to go out and read our contributors guide. So we'll hopefully catch you in this way if you don't read that guide. Once you have this Docs Authoring Pack extension installed, the next place you'd want to look for a significant contribution here is to go to our ASP.NET Core folder in the root of this workspace folder. And what you're going to see here is really a folder for each collection of features within ASP.NET Core that we are responsible for documenting. And so, for example, if you go out to, let's go out to our docs. So docs.asp.net is the vanity URL you can use to get to our docs. But go out here and notice if you click Get Started, for example, you can kind of get a clue as to where to look in the repo by looking at the URL up here. So ASP.NET/core/getting started. If we go to our docs, there's a Getting Started folder. Chances are the doc is found there. Sure enough, here it is right here. Index markdown file. And what you're seeing here now is the raw markdown representation of the rendered page that I was just looking at out on docs.microsoft.com. So your typical structure for a markdown file is going to look a lot like what you see here. Up at the top of each markdown file in our doc set, you're going to see a bunch of metadata, which to an external contributor is meaningless. And that is fine. That's what us lovely folks here are good for helping you with. We will help you figure out that. The rest of it is just built by working with our team to create a content outline. So you have an idea for a doc that you want to write. Okay, let's first have you create a GitHub issue, and we will collaborate with you to build out, you know, sort of an outline for this doc, what that should look like. And that's really how we arrive at the headings in the markdown here. So like on line 10, that's where you see a level 1 heading. That's just the heading for this entire doc that we're looking at. But you'll notice other headings within here, like here's a level 2 heading. There's another one. And again, our team would help you come up with, you know, what should those headings be? Do they conform to our style guide that we maintain?
As you're doing your outline, think a little bit about who your audience is. If you're picturing that this is for folks that are brand new to ASP.NET Core, or they've been around ASP.NET Core for a long time, maybe they're not even new to the particular collection of features that you're going to talk about, but there's something in particular in how they're put together that you're covering, or a very specific advanced scenario. So if you let us know what your goal is and who your audience is, that can help us kind of narrow down the outline for what you're covering. And also, we can keep in mind if we've got something else in the works going on that maybe you could collaborate with that's already going on.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's the big thing, what Wade was just describing. We want to make sure that you're not working on something that maybe someone on our team is already working on. No need to duplicate the efforts. If you have knowledge of something that we are currently working on, let's collaborate, because we're going to end up with a better quality document in the end. We realize that we have a very strong, vibrant community out there, and we really like to leverage them wherever possible. Because the reality is we're a very small team.
And then there's so many ways you can contribute to. I'm sorry I interrupted you there, Scott.
Oh, so go ahead.
So when we or anybody in the community is creating a new topic, we'll suggest an outline of what we're going to cover, the approach and scope, audience, and you can be involved right there in the discussion. You'll see the issue pop up. If you're interested in that area, get in the discussion about, does that seem like the right outline? Are we covering the right scope or approach there? Is there a different code example you think that would work better? And then once the topic is in draft form, you can help with reviews of reviewing that topic. So anywhere along during the process, that's great to jump in, provide feedback. We also have projects listed up there. You can actually see what projects we're working on. You can see milestones. You can see what's going on for any particular sprint. Our sprints are monthly, just each month. So all of July is a sprint, for example, just for simplicity's sake. But you can see what's going on, and if you're interested in a particular area, you could let us know.
So I actually just pulled up. I just pulled up what Wade was talking about with the GitHub projects. We like to be very transparent about what we're working on. So here, if you come out to the projects tab in our GitHub repository, you're going to see exactly what Wade was describing. Each of our sprints. So June 2019, for example, you can click in there and you see, okay, we've still got to update this one, but what were we planning to do in that sprint? What will we address next in that next up column? What's in progress and what has been merged to master and published to live? You'll notice that same structure for each of our sprints. The other thing we like to do out here, which we still have to do for our July sprint, is identify what are the high-level goals to tackle in that sprint. And so for the June sprint, one of the big items was getting out new content for the ASP.NET Core 3.0 Preview 6 release. That's what you see listed here. Another interesting thing, though, that you see there is Microsoft Learn. This is something that many of us have been spending a significant amount of time on. So it's not just the conceptual doc set that I was showing at the beginning of this. We also spend a fair amount of time as of late in the Microsoft Learn platform. I actually have that tab open over here. So if you were to go to, let's say our docs landing page, I'm going to point this out because it's easy to miss this. Up at the top, there's this banner introducing a new approach to learning. And if you click Start Learning, this is how you find this Microsoft Learn platform. And we have a whole bunch of content out there. I want to say almost 400 courses, or what we call modules now. And it's categorized by persona. So you identify, okay, what is my role as a student? I'm a developer, for example. So you would select that from the drop-down. And over here under products, let's get to the good stuff, ASP.NET Core. This is where you're going to notice that we're starting to build out a learning path of modules. Cam and myself have produced 2 of the modules that you see here. Feel free to jump in, Cam, if there's anything you wanted to point out here. We have an introductory web API module that consists of 8 units. So you can think of a unit as really a page or a step within the course. We've also got an EF Core 200 level course out there. So the thought is we would have an entire learning path out here that would consist of about 7 to 8 of these modules when it's done. The really cool thing with the Microsoft Learn platform is the gamification aspect that they've introduced. So say, for example, I decide to take this Create a Web API course. If you complete this course, get all the way through the exercises and the reading material, and complete the knowledge check, what you earn is this awesome .NET Bot badge. That's your achievement badge as proof that you successfully completed this module. Once our learning path is out there, there would be another achievement badge that you would earn for completing all of the modules within that path. Sort of think of it as the trophy that you get at the end.
Hey Scott, I've got my profile page up where I can show my achievements really quick.
Yeah, let's. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, and then you share yours.
Sure thing. Let me know when you've got it.
There.
All right, so yeah, Scott was talking about the gamification. So they actually, it's a lot like your gamer score on Xbox or PlayStation, where you earn XP per unit that you complete, and it contributes to a level, and you level up as you go. But when you finish the modules, like Scott said, you get these nifty badges that you can. We feature the .NET bot on our ASP.NET badges, kind of the .NET mascot. One other thing that I'm going to show while we're here, Scott showed the first page for our Web API module. I've actually got our EF Core module in progress over here. And the thing that should hopefully jump out to you right away is that these Learn modules have the capability of being interactive, right? So it's not just we're going to tell you to go do something and you go off and do it in Visual Studio. We actually have a text editor in the browser here where we can, here I'll jump down to the last step on this one, where we can perform the steps with actual code. And oh, I should probably save before I build, and get that instant feedback to see if it builds successfully.
You can also use that to add new files in there. So if you're going to add a class, for example, it's pretty robust.
So this is 100% in the browser then?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
What we
all
wanted
up running
to do
off
here,
of Azure.
Yep. What we wanted to do was create a frictionless learning environment. So this is an Ubuntu VM running up in Azure. Many of the CLIs that we would use as .NET developers are already installed there. So the Azure CLI, the .NET CLI, and then you've got a bunch of commands that you would use for other various purposes, like curl. Curl is installed out there. You know, a bunch that I can't think of right now, but really great for just kicking the tires. You know, if you're a ASP.NET Core developer and you really want to explore what is this Azure thing all about, it's a great way to learn. You know, sign up for a free account. There's really no obligation for you here. Fire up the course that Cam was showing off there and just, tinker in the Cloud Shell.
And I'm going to actually show that again really quick. Like Scott said, one of the great things about this environment is that there's Azure resources available to us. So as a dependency for this module, we actually set up an Azure SQL database. Let me try to remember. Here we go. Here's the verify the. No, we haven't done those steps yet. I'm going to go back. We can. Got an alias set up here in Linux where in the bash prompt here where we can just send SQL queries to our Azure SQL database. Now it's an empty database, so there's no tables, but we're hitting a live Azure database that's not even provisioned to my Azure account. It's provisioned as gratis as part of this Learn environment.
Cam, you mentioned levels. What does different levels do?
Bragging rights.
Cool. Hey, Tom, down. I don't know if you see it, but down in the lower left corner, there's a thing with a magnifying glass.
Yes.
And if you click on that, it'll go away. It's no, not yeah, down there. Let me see. Yeah. So there's like and I don't know if I'm seeing on the time delay or whatever, but like down in the bottom left, it has the like graph with the magnifying glass thing, and that goes away when you click on it. Yeah. Okay. Good. Cool.
It's not going away.
Oh, all right then.
So there was a question in the chat here I want to make sure we get to. The question was, so what if I already deploy and use Azure? Do I get badges? Unfortunately, no. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but you would have to complete our modules here to earn those badges.
Cool. There was another question going in YouTube discussion going on, and Luke's been answering too. But question on how do you since the docs are version dependent, how do I see just what's different between two versions? So like, for instance, between ASP.NET Core 2.2 and 3.0.
So as of right now, the way we manage the differences is I'll actually share my screen here to show how that's working. So one thing I didn't mention when I was showing off the Markdown here in VS Code is that we actually have custom Markdown extensions that we use. This is an example, what I've highlighted. That's a custom Markdown extension that's been created for docs.microsoft.com. The reason why I mentioned custom Markdown extensions is that's actually how we are versioning our content. So let's look for an example here. If I go to search, we use what we call inline monikers. So here is an example in our environments doc. And what you're seeing, I'm going to highlight just to make it easier to see. Everything I've highlighted, the content within those triple colon markers will appear only when ASP.NET Core 2.2 or greater have been selected from the version selector. So you can sort of think of this as like web programming, where you're toggling the display of a div tag. That's really what's going on here. So when this is rendered, Docs is saying if someone has selected 2.2 or 3.0 preview from our version selector, the text I've highlighted here should be displayed. So that's how we manage our version differences. Now, as the doc set matures and the product matures for that matter, we may come to a point where this versioning approach becomes unmanageable, and we might have to take a different versioning approach. So our docs infrastructure team has a couple of other approaches we can take as an alternative to this inline versioning strategy. One of those approaches involves duplication of content, which we were hoping to avoid, which is why we haven't gone down that path quite yet. With that approach, what you would do is you'd really have one folder per version in the product. So in other words, we would have a 2.2 folder with the entire doc set, a 3.0 folder with the entire doc set. And so you can start to see where that would get real ugly in a hurry. So I hope that answers the question.
And at the top in the metadata, you can show that you could make a whole article depending on version.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. I forgot that. So line 5, which I've highlighted there, what this is saying is, hey, this environments doc that I'm looking at here should only be made available in the table of contents if 2.1 or greater has been selected from the version picker.
Ah.
And this is
Okay.
an item that we can help you out with if you're
Yep.
contributing, and all you need to let us know is this is the version you intended it for. It's the one you're testing it for, and we can help you out with that.
It's often
Yep.
a cause of confusion because things disappear from the TOC and you might not realize it's because of the version.
Hmm.
So speaking of the TOC, you might wonder, well, where is that stored in the repo? Well, it's actually, if you look in the ASP.NET Core folder, there's a TOC YAML file. If we had audio, I'm sure there would be groaning right now over the YAML.
I
But-
muted before I groaned.
Yes, it's YAML. And the reason why I point you at the YAML file here is you're not going to see any kind of versioning handled in the TOC. It's all within that individual markdown file. So in other words, if I were to search for that environments markdown file in here, there would not be, looks like it's this one here. Notice there's nothing here that says display this only for 2.1 or later. It's within that doc that you would find that information.
Hmm.
So this UID value here, fundamentals/environments, this is, think of it as like a GUID. It's the unique identifier for the doc. So this text, this is really a key value pair. This text is the key. The value is just pointing to that unique doc. So fundamentals/environment, which means if I go to my fundamentals folder, environments, it's this UID here on line 9. That's what that value is.
Cool. Okay, so another question that Hisham asked via Twitter was support for localization. Any kind of thoughts on ongoing or future support for localization?
As far as localized contributions?
Yeah.
Or okay. Yeah, okay, that is a very good question. I can give you a little bit of background on generally how things are localized, but I don't think I'm the person to answer how we're contributing that way just now. So there's some live people that will actually touch the docs when they're being localized, but a good share of it is essentially done by machine. So the contribution system we used to have, folks would then contribute on the other end of that after the doc was already created, but not create it to begin with, to start with. So if they wanted to update it, for example, they had a system for that. I honestly don't know. I can't say how it works at the moment. Is there anybody else that's more up to date on that one, or is that one we're going to have to come back with? Because I know it changed. I don't know how it is right now.
Yeah, you would know better than me, Wade.
Oh no!
I hate to leave you hanging.
My apologies that I don't know. I'm sorry. It's changed. I'm not sure exactly how it's working right now. The localized files are in a repo, And generally they'll do they'll run a localization automatically once we have our content in every once in a while, and take them in batches. Content that has already been translated once for phrases, they'll rely on a phrase database of translated pieces, which will be dropped in, and then occasionally people are reviewing. But I can't tell you beyond that. So that sounds like that's one where we need to provide a presentation, have something ready to go to show you next time, perhaps.
So
apologize, I don't know.
I can show where the localized repos are on GitHub, and how to find those. So I'll share my screen again.
Yeah, I'm not sure if folks are allowed to contribute directly in those or not. I honestly don't know.
Yeah, I believe they can. These should be public repos. So within the ASP.NET organization on GitHub, if you just search for ASP.NET Core.docs, that's the English version of the doc set that we've been looking at. But below that, you'll notice there's 13 other search results here representing different languages that we translate into. Those repos are found here. So if you're interested, take a peek. We do occasionally get pull requests from the community in those repos.
Okay. So another question is, a lot of these tutorials and docs have some pretty in-depth code samples as well, but they're kind of in one giant repo, right? So if I want to get to a code sample, is the guidance to kind of clone the whole repo and grab that folder, or what do you do?
It's been a long-standing problem. That is precisely the guidance.
Okay.
There is an initiative underway right now internally. It's being piloted, and that is aimed at improving that problem that's being described. I don't know how it would improve, but it will. That's been a long-standing issue we've been hearing about for at least the past 2 to 3 years.
But like going past that problem, then I forget, because I've been also monitoring the chat. Did you show the repo? Did you actually show some of those sample projects? Because I think that's a good resource a lot of people don't know about.
Yeah, let me share my screen here, and I can show you the convention we use in our repo for sample apps.
You might also show one that, like the logging with, they have a lot of different snippets and preprocessor directives that you can switch.
The logging app?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm less familiar with that one. But let me find a good example to start with. Okay, so here's a great example. If I were to expand the fundamentals folder in the root here under ASP.NET Core, and then go to our DI doc, dependency injection, you're going to notice in the root here there's a dependency-injection markdown file. And for samples that correspond to that doc, we typically create a folder with the same name without the markdown file extension, obviously, but it's within there that you would find a samples folder. And in this case, we have 2 different sample apps that go with that doc, a 1.x, meaning ASP.NET Core 1.x, and a 2.x. Now, when 3.0 is released, chances are we'll have a 3.x folder out here, and that's how we've been creating samples and organizing them in this doc set. Now, is there something in here that you wanted to point out, Tom?
Yeah, and a lot of them, they have different scenarios that they want to portray, and you need to change the code to see the different scenario, and we handle that by using preprocessor directives.
Yeah, I can't think of an exact location of one of those, but yeah, I know exactly. So let's look into logging.
Index,
samples. Notice the same pattern is followed here. We've got a samples folder, 1.x, 2.x folder within. And
try program.cs.
Program.cs. There we go, line 1. is what Tom's talking about, I believe.
Right. So each one of those is a different scenario that you can try out.
So I think this is really helpful and something that, when people are asking me for samples, or a lot of the time when I'm showing off a new feature that is just freshly in the docs, this is usually one of the best sources to find some actual good working code that's very feature related, So it's, instead of, hey, here's a neat app I threw together, it's here's how to use this specific logging feature or something like that. So.
One other thing you're going to notice in a lot of our sample apps is heavy use of regions. There's a lot of debate in the community over whether regions are good or not. This is actually a great use case for regions. So typically what we do is we'll prefix region names with something like snippet underscore, followed by a brief description of what that code is. And this is how we import specific code snippets into our docs. So in this case, this region, starting on line 23, ending on line 32, some doc out there, so our logging doc, it looks like, is most likely importing this code snippet. And so if I search for that region name, we'll see how it's being used.
So that solves the problem of keeping the docs and the sample code in sync. So you don't have one.
Yeah, that's another strategy.
Otherwise, you're bringing it in by line number, and line numbers change pretty frequently.
Cool.
So yeah, if you were to search out here, it's something like name equals in our, or even better, snippet. This is our strategy for importing code snippets into docs. So we have what's known as devlangs when we import these. And I'm not sure why my search isn't working. Let's try one more thing here. That's regex. There we go. So I mentioned something called devlang, D-E-V-L-A-N-G. Devlang refers to this language identifier that follows code dash. So what you're seeing here on line 609, for example, this is where we import a code snippet into a doc. And this just happens to be a Razor view file. Looks like a Blazor Razor file extension. But notice here on line 609, the use of that region name. Query string name equals snippet underscore Blazor rocks. And it's this devlang here that is enabling syntax highlighting for that Razor file type. So that when you look at the code snippet on the rendered web page, the syntax highlighting that you see should be very similar to what you would get in Visual Studio. You'll notice there's all kinds of those out here.
Cool. Let me see. Question on, and now's a good time, if you're watching live, now's a good time to get any questions into the team. So there's a question from Atro asking how to combine relevant docs that cross different platforms, for instance, Office docs and ASP.NET docs. Is it just kind of, is there a standard for, like, do you put references, at the bottom, or do you just link within, or? And I'm not sure if that, I don't know if Office is, I'm guessing something like Azure AD and, and ASP.NET is something I've run into more.
Yeah, we see this a lot with Visual Studio, for example. The Docker tools for Visual Studio is a great example. So we've got Docker containerization docs in the ASP.NET Core doc set. But we also want the user to find the Visual Studio tooling docs that relate to Azure. So we might link to that typically down at the bottom of the doc in an additional resources section.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah.
One other approach we've taken is in our table of contents, we will sometimes link out to other doc sets for other products like Visual Studio or John's example, Azure AD, AD B2C, anything that we think is super relevant to the customer reading the doc set, we want to make sure they can easily find that.
Cool. So one other thing is, we've been focusing a lot on the mechanics and the workflow. Are there any, so I've kind of stumbled across some areas on the docs that I think are really great. Like, for instance, the guidance that you have on security and performance are really solid. So is there anything you want to show off, like top docs that you would like developers to know more about? And if none come to mind, those are two that I love.
I would struggle to pinpoint just one or two, because I think they're all pretty awesome.
Yeah, great answer.
Okay.
So good.
You guys, anything that comes to mind?
I'm pretty proud of the learn work that we showed off earlier.
Mm.
Yeah, being able to give you an environment that's already set up and ready to go, and just start learning right away. It's nice to finally have that. So to be able to give that to people so that they can just get on their browser and go.
And so I guess that's another example, kind of going back to the previous question. We do actually link to the Learn docs from the table of contents we were looking at. So I'll share my screen again here, sort of point out. So looking at the table of contents, you're going to notice two categories of tutorials. Just the plain old tutorials is our classic non-interactive tutorial. Tom, Wade, all of us have invested a significant amount of time here. Those have been around much longer. They're sort of our tried and true go-to places to learn the tech that you're interested in. And then the Microsoft Learn stuff, and these are obviously the more interactive form of our tutorials.
One of my favorite is Tom's EF series. And there's been a lot of people that have been involved in helping to improve those over time. But in particular, I like that one as a top one that I like folks to go take a peek at.
Luke in the chat is calling out the Blazor preview docs.
Oh yeah, yes, Luke. Thank you.
So this is a great opportunity to show off the version selector, because right now, if you were to go digging around for the Blazor docs, you would not find them. And the reason is 2.2 is the default version that is selected when you land on this page. So again, pay close attention to that version, select 3.0 preview, and there's a filter up here. If I search Blazor, chances are I would find whatever I'm looking for by going that route. And you can see, sure enough, there's actually a Blazor tutorial out there that you could take a look at.
So, well, a few people have said that the docs are amazing, so I need to make sure you're seeing all that feedback. But people are loving it. A few people have said that they wish that it ranked higher in Google results, or that they just go and search directly in the docs. Is there stuff that you do to try and show up higher in Google results, or is that just kind of you write good content and then hope it floats to the top?
Yeah, we do we'll do a sweep for SEO on occasion for search engine optimization. We probably should be doing it more often than we do. But some of the problems we'll have long-standing is we have some content out there that's great, but it's been out there for so long building up search juice that we'll put out something new, right? And then we got to deal with that, so our own stuff. There's also been some changes lately. I noticed where things like Wikipedia, which is also great, but we'll take a front seat over the top of content that's out there because they have some specific questions that are answered in that format that's being offered, for example, through Google now. We really need to change things around to address that better. So there's some work to be done there.
So another question on the chat, and you showed the Learn stuff, which is amazing and it's interactive. There's also questions about try.net integration, and I know that's in parts of the docs, but it's harder to do with ASP.NET docs, right?
Yeah, it is. So we have a series that's out there with C# for learning if you're getting going with C# that are awesome by Bill Wagner, and also lots of other folks were involved helping to get that going. But it's a great way to go in that you can immediately just start typing in code right there as you're going through the tutorial, and it'll compile and run. And so it's a pretty awesome way to go. But do we have anything for ASP.NET yet? I know Rick was working on some, but I don't think we have any published yet. We do want to do that, though.
So we don't. I was just actually talking to Maria about this earlier today, so I can take this one. So we don't currently have support in our ASP.NET Core docs for try.net. The reason is, so try.net is currently based on client-side execution using Blazor and WebAssembly model. For that reason, I guess that's one of the biggest limitations right now, why we can't use ASP.NET Core with try.net. It used to be that try.net used a server-side execution model with Azure Container Instances. In that world, we could have used it with ASP.NET Core. For various reasons, they shifted away from that model. I think cost reduction might have been one of those. Lack of interest was probably another. But what we have now is we're sort of in this place where if you had a need to use try.net with anything ASP.NET Core, you could do that. However, it would require using a .NET Core global tool for try.net, and that would be a local docs experience that you would have at that point. It wouldn't be running up in the browser.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
If you do a search for .NET DOTNET and try, you'll find a blog up there by Maria Nagaga, who has provided an introduction to it. And she'll also link out to some docs that are using it, but it's pretty cool. I love using it. There's an introduction to C# series that's up on docs.microsoft.com, and if you check that out, you'll see try.net in action, and definitely a really nice way to start picking up a new language where you're coding, and you can see right there in the tutorial itself, you can start fooling with the code and get results and see what's happening with it. We also have some examples of it up in the API reference. There's some like string, for example, where people just want to see what the output's going to look like. I want to fool with what you got for an example a little bit. And I want to see what's happening with it. And that was a great place to use it. There was some up there for that API. I guess that's
so
all.
Wade, you mentioned API reference, and I just remembered we haven't shown that. Let me share my screen so folks know what we're referring to here.
Yeah, for the other 20,000 topics. Yeah.
Right. So again, looking at the ASP.NET Core doc set, down at the bottom of the TOC, you're going to see this API ref link. If you click there, this is, I guess, an alternative way of sort of looking at the internals of the APIs within ASP.NET Core. So you're not inside of Visual Studio choosing go to definition. You want to view that information from the web page. Well, here's how you would do it. ASP.NET Core is where we are now, but you'll notice we've got API ref pages for really all of our developer products out there. So .NET Core, a lot of the people on the call right now might be interested in that. Well, you can look at that information as well, and you can see that we currently have available the latest Preview 6 APIs in the 3.0 release. We really like to keep this updated as much as possible. But you can dive into, say, the ASP.NET Core HTTP namespace and just get a sense of, well, what's in that namespace. Looks like we've got some interfaces out here, iForm collection. We can look at the properties and methods within. And a lot of this, I believe, is generated by the code comments within ASP.NET Core. Correct me if I'm wrong, Wade.
Yeah, they are. So if the developer provides / comments, those are brought in here initially. Depends on the API being generated at Microsoft, but yeah, that's essentially how it works.
Yep.
Very cool. Well, we're right at about an hour, so I think we've shown quite a bit of stuff, and I think this has been great. I think really this is long overdue, and we should have had you on before. and I'd like to make this more of a regular thing where if there are big updates from the team or big new features, love for the community to be more aware of them. So you showed at the beginning how people can get involved and can communicate with you. Where's kind of if the top thing? Should people just go out to the docs repo or go and edit? People have questions. How do they reach you?
I think the best place to start is go to our GitHub repository. So again, that's github.com/ASP.NET/ASP.NET Core.docs. Go out there and open an issue if you want to start a conversation with the team about something. If it's not a docs issue, maybe it's a product issue. Another good GitHub repo is ASP.NET/ASP.NET Core. You go out there and you get the product team instead of the docs team.
Mm-hmm. My understanding too, like I'll talk to people and they'll say, well, I'm worried about putting an issue in the wrong repo. And from talking to most of the teams, they'll say, just file the issue and we'll move it to the right repo if we need to.
Yeah, we just want to hear you. So don't worry about that. We'll take care of it.
And if it's a question on a specific article, there's a link at the bottom of the article that creates a GitHub issue that's connected to that article.
Cool. So right within the article, you click on the
at the bottom, there's feedback for product or page. If you click on the page button, it'll create a GitHub issue connected to that issue, to that particular article.
Great. Okay. Well, I think we're set to wrap up there, unless you have anything else you'd like to add.
We'll have to follow up on the localization question. That's one we didn't answer. So I'll make sure we're prepared with that one next time. Sorry, we don't have that one.
Sure.
I guess the one last thing I would have is I wanted to show off what Tom was just describing. Not sure how I forgot to show that, so thank you, Tom. Let me just go back to our docs. ASP.NET Core. And if we scroll down to the bottom of one of our docs, say about ASP.NET Core, you'll notice this feedback link at the top. And what Tom was describing was this GitHub integration. So in this send feedback about box here, you can click this page button, and that will actually allow you to open a GitHub issue specifically for this doc. And so you'll see below this submit feedback box, there are currently 3 other open issues for this doc. So this is a really great way to come out here and see if, maybe you're struggling to figure something out. Well, chances are somebody has already filed a GitHub issue for the same problem. Maybe they're struggling with that same issue. This is a really great place to look.
Right.
You can see there where there's a discussion going on for those items, and lots of folks can jump in. So.
Cool. All right. Well, so we'll post the links in the show notes. Anything that you'd like to, you can also watch the comments or the show notes if you'd like to. And otherwise, so, join us every Tuesday for the ASP.NET Community Stand-Up. And on Thursdays, we have the additional .NET Community Stand-Ups on the other platforms as well. So, everything from mobile and cloud, language tools, etc. So thanks a lot. I think we're set to wrap up there. So, Tom, you as the one person in Channel 9 Studios, you're the person that needs to end the broadcast.
I will do so right now.
Okay.
All right.